The download user is sort of any kind of content creator, and that could be anyone who's like a blogger or a major media company, someone who has a commerce shop, or someone who has sort of like a YouTube channel or a channel on Vimeo. So what we really do is work with content creators to take their content mobile in the form of an app. So really anyone that wants an app who creates content can do so on the download platform. So it really can take you a minute and a half. I think it's the fastest that someone's created an app on the platform. It's sort of a three-step process. The first one is you can either import your content or create your content, original content, like you would in Squarespace or WordPress. Once your content's in there, you can customize anything you want, really, any kind of element, layouts, drop images, text, any kind of font, commerce, music, if you have a music player in there, if you're a blogger and you want your food and recipes, you can do that too. So you can use any of the features in the customization process, and then when you're ready, you just sort of press submit, and then we submit it to the App Store for you. And then once your app's live, anything you want to change, we're constantly launching new features like premium content, and then commerce is a big play that we're making at the moment. So you can go in there, update it, and it updates in real time. So I think the one thing that people don't really realize about mobile web is that it can be really slow. So depending on what platform they've sort of built their content, there's a lot of plugins running. And the drop-off in like loading a web page, if it isn't sort of like instant, and Google found this in search terms, then the user sort of bounces. And so by getting them into the mobile experience, they sort of consume more page views and more sessions. So that's kind of like the first thing. It's just sort of super fast and easy to load the content. The second thing, especially when it comes to commerce, the checkout experience on mobile is kind of tedious and quite difficult to do, especially if you want to buy multiple different items. A lot of like bloggers and media companies these days are recommending products for users to buy in the article. And so lighting that experience up on mobile can be done in really cool ways in terms of creating shopping carousels or allowing people to sort of filter and sort the things that other users would like to buy, and then add multiple things to your cart and check out. We have like a lot of users on the platform who are sort of doing premium content. So for example, if you're like a fitness person, you could do, hey, do you want to try this like workout for the day for like 30 cents? Or would you like to try, our Thanksgiving cooking guide for like $7? And so, they can sort of charge however they want to, and they're sort of driving like a lot of new additive revenue through that. And then also like a good way of sort of using the platform is you can look at the different analytics, looking at the times of day when people are most engaged with content, sending push notifications. If you want to turn on rich advertising, like you can sell your own advertising through sort of DFP or however you traffic it, or with any of your existing ad networks, or if you want download to help you, we'll connect you with someone who will, sell against your category, sell against your content, sell against your end user in sort of like interesting, cool ad units that people really like. A recent thing that happened, it's a big thing in the media industry, is these things called ad blockers that sort of happen on mobile web. And so we have a lot of people really working on high engaging ads in their app because the ad blockers can't really sort of turn you off. And so any of that ad revenue you were sort of losing before on mobile web, you're now not within the app. And then for me, it was really important for anyone to really have an app. And so I really created sort of like this freemium model. So if you're a hobbyist, you can sort of use the platform without ever having to pay us. And we really sort of go to a lot of work to make sure that our users are sort of making money before we sort of charge them. And then even so, the first sort of like pay point is about $15 a month, which will pretty much get you everywhere. And then sort of on the high end, it's all about exporting content and running your own analysis through that. And that goes to like $100 a month. So even so, it's still sort of pretty affordable. When I started to, really work with some beta customers when we were building out the original product, or the first go-to-market product, I sort of got a lot of bloggers in and a lot of media companies across different categories and age groups, and in terms of like how long that they've been sort of going. The one thing I sort of realized was no one actually knows the value of their audience or how to actually monetize them. And so what we really wanted to do was like sort of educate the user in terms of, that there are sort of three very easy ways in how to monetize your content. First one is like if you're a brand and people sell against a brand as an influencer, and so they want to be associated with you, and so that can kind of be in the form of native, and that sort of takes a little bit more work. The second one's is selling based on the media that you've got. And then the third one's against sort of the end user. I think where download sort of comes into play is it's really hard to access sort of, if you're a beauty blogger, like Revlon money, right? Because you need to have millions of uniques a month in order to access those dollars. So what we really do is try and align you with other people who are doing similar things so that we can sort of build that audience and get you super rich advertising so it can sell against the platform. And then even if you are, a well-being app, but you have a lot of end users who would like cross over into that category, we'll also sort of sell and share the advertising to the end user, much like sort of like how Facebook does it, right? It targets you as an individual. So we sort of educate them, and then we like work with any of their existing ad networks. We also teach them how to sell their own ad inventory. And then if they want to opt into us for remnant or for the whole thing, we're very transparent about how to do that. The same thing with like affiliate networks. It's really hard to negotiate with these guys if you don't have a huge audience, because obviously it's a lot of their time to take the meeting. Things you need to be really mindful of in terms of negotiating is if you send a user to, say, for example, Saks Fifth Avenue, chances are that user's going to put in their email address. Now, Saks would pay hundreds of dollars for that email address because it's someone who potentially wants to, buy and become a customer of theirs. So we call this like a sign-up bounty. So you go to sign-up bounty, and then if that user buys the product you recommended or any other product, then you should get a percentage of that sale. They also don't know how to negotiate all the value of that. And then the third thing on that is if they buy anything within a 30-day period, because as we all know, sometimes we sort of wish list things or we browse other products before making a purchase on that day. So it doesn't necessarily have to be within that session. So as users come to the platform, we sort of use the power of the network to negotiate better deals. So just by being a part of the network, you kind of get the benefit of these better rates. I want to change the way that people create content. So at the moment, most people sort of will look at a template that they really like, and then they'll try and fit their content into that template. I think that the content is really, where your story is, whatever it is you're trying to tell. It sort of works in two different ways. It means that you publish your own posts, and then we try and help you make it look visually and as compelling as it can be. Whether that's, if it's a finance blog, it's really about the text, it's about the headlines, it's about sending push notifications about the headlines. If it's a recipe blog, it's really about images. And then, what we want to do is build features for people to interact with the content. So for example, if you're on a recipe page, you should be able to pretty much be able to change the metrics of all the ingredients on your phone. You should be able to Instacart the ingredients. You should have users upload different images of what that recipe should look like. And then if they say hey, with this pumpkin pie, I wanted to add some turmeric, and enough people sort of upvote that, you should have a user-generated version, right? So I want to change the way people publish content in two different ways. One, lighting up the content so it has the best user experience. So if it's purchasing, then it has all the wish list features, save for later, different sort of ways in which you can pay for it, or finding different products and price comparisons for you, so that users can sort of engage with it, and then also making it always work for the end user in terms of whatever that sort of two-step process is for them. I get this question actually quite a lot. I think what it was is a series of different things. So I grew up in a political family, and so as a result of that, I was exposed to a lot of really great, amazing people. And very early on had the ability to converse with them on serious topics that were meaningful to them. So just being able to, one, see the world through their eyes, and then two, have the confidence to sort of talk to anyone about anything that they were working on, allowed me to sort of learn a lot in short amounts of time having conversations with them. I think that's sort of the one thing from a childhood. In terms of later on in life, I didn't study economics or engineering. It's the same thing with my sister. She studied philosophy and politics. I studied sociology and psychology. And so, we both sort of, which is influence of our family's decisions, was we kind of were told not to think like everyone else. And so the things that we chose to do at college was, partake in courses that would teach us to think differently or see the world differently. And that really gave me the ability to come up with ideas and sort of see what was going on in the world and where these needs were. And then I had the confidence to sort of act on it. I think anyone can really start something. You can tell pretty quickly whether you're on the right journey or not. And then once you are, then you soon start to sort of like seek investment and go from there. But the actual starting thing, anyone can really do. You just got to go for it, really. I think that your initial hires are the most important people. I don't hire executives, really. I don't think I've ever recruited a major executive from any company. That's not to say that our engineering team, I mean, some of them have PhDs, they've all come from Google, Twitter, Foursquare, they're extremely senior and like unbelievable engineers. But I only recently hired a CTO, and the company's about 3.5 years old, and so he would be the closest thing to an executive, and before he wasn't even a CTO. So I think the one thing is really like hiring very good people who are very good at doing their job, and only bringing them in when they can actually come into full effect. And so really take your time with hiring, only hire the right people at the right time. I know that sounds really logical, but a lot of people get like a big round of investment. They'll go get a head of marketing, a head of sales, and they'll try and bring all these people in at the same time. And bringing someone into a culture and trying to do that too quickly will change it, and it will change your existing culture. So I never recommend anyone hire more than 1 to 2 people a month. I never recommend anyone hire, any executives until much later, as often as late as possible, or even not at all. The reason with them is because they're actually managers, and so they, are used to running 4, 5, 6 person teams, and they actually can't and won't do sort of the dirty work that you need to do in an early stage company. Another thing that I sort of see a lot, and I advise like a lot of initial tech companies and people who are starting out in the industry, they try to be really stingy with their employees when they first hire them. They're like, oh, it's a tech company, so we can't pay you very well. And equity's really tight when you have this board. Well, usually like there really isn't a board, right? Especially in the first couple of years. So I would say don't be stingy on the equity. Give them a fair vest, give them a fair, like if you get into options, give them like a decent period of time to be able to buy that back, and be really transparent with them about exactly what their equity is worth and where they sit in the marketplace. I often also do benchmarking, and so I will show people when I hire them where I think their benchmarking is in the process of whatever their tenure is going to be at Download. So I manage their expectations as well, because it's not just about bringing people in, it's about helping them build their own lives, and if they're going to be with you for a long period of time, they need to know that they can afford to do so in the long run. So I think that's sort of like a big thing in terms of like recruiting talent. In terms of management, spend as much time with people as possible. I'm still at a point, we're pretty big now, but I touch everyone in the company. I still hire everyone in the company. I think it's really important, no matter who they are, that I'm the person that brings them in. And I'm going to do that for as long as I possibly can. Because at the end of the day, they're quitting their life to work for your dream, and so they need to know your vision for the company. You don't want any kind of surprises. Another thing I do, which I think is really unusual, is I sort of share my calendar. No matter who you are in the company, you know where I am at every single moment. And that really gives them, the ongoing knowledge that, I'm out there working for the company harder and longer and, many more hours and 7 days a week, and don't take any holidays. But so they kind of know that, and I think that that's something that everyone has sort of mentioned to me that works there, that they sort of appreciate that. When you're sort of starting out, it's really important to have a product, and so I typically would encourage someone not to even think about raising money until they've got something to sort of show. Walking into a room with just an idea or a deck without having like a team or a product just really puts you at risk. And it also gives an opportunity for someone to sort of say no really quickly. And chances are they're going to go build it and then come back. So at least you're going in there with some sort of knowledge. So I would say in like the seed stages, make sure you've got a product and do everything you can. Stay with your existing job as long as it takes to sort of get there. Because what that allows you to do is leverage, you have something of value, so you can actually put a price point on where you are and start your negotiations off in your own favor. Another thing I sort of say is just raise what you need. So raise what you need to get to the next stage. So I think from product would be like go to market. So you kind of have your demo, just raise what you need to get to market. Then once you're in market, then you want to raise to be able to basically bring your audience in. Not that I encourage people to sort of buy users, but the partnerships and sort of building these different things, whatever your product is, whether it's a fashion product and getting a sales team or whatever that investment is that you need to sort of get there in market. And then the stage after that is kind of what we kind of call like upscaling. And that's like, how do you blow it out? And that's sort of when you do your big round. So what that does is it protects you and you increase your value at every single increment, right? So if you're demo to in market, well, now you're in market, people start to know about you. Now you actually have people engaging with the product. You can improve on that, you can grow. So then you're protecting yourself, you're growing in value every single time. So I would say, like, you know, just because you have a hot product and people are throwing money at you, which is, you know, obviously a champagne problem, don't take it all. Take it from the right people. That would sort of like be and you know, in tech industry, we sort of call this like seed stage and Series A. In terms of like how to go and meet the VCs, I met them from basically when I had an idea. I would go to all the different networking things, build relationships with different people, keep them in the loop. When I'd run into them, be like, I'm going to come to you when I'm there, but I'm not there yet, but you're going to like it. These are the reasons I think you're going to like it. And so I would never sort of divulge too much, but they always knew, like, I will call you. And so that was like a really big thing, because when I did and was ready to go to them, which was years later, they were kind of prepared, and I already knew that I was going to get that meeting. The other thing is, when you're sort of like in a big round of fundraising, this is what I tell people a lot, you know, for their Series A, is be really organized about it. Know 6 weeks in advance. Everyone sort of has their own VC process. You have to meet with one partner, then another partner, and then, you know, you get a partner meeting. Usually people get like sort of 2 to 3, 4 if you're lucky. So you have to be very mindful of that, and you need to leverage yourself, right? And so, you know, by spreading it out, you end up running around, you know, Silicon Valley or New York or LA, meeting with family offices, and then meeting with the big VCs, and everything's sort of out of order. So be really organized about it. You know, get like a digital assistant or someone, have everyone sort of lined up back to back, and try and keep your process into a very, you know, 6 to 8 week process. And what that'll mean is that everything will move faster, you'll put more pressure on everyone, you'll get the best deal that you can. My first company, I was really young. I didn't really know what fundraising was, and in Australia there were no angel funds or VCs, and so I think like the one thing at the time was I barely raised any money for my first company, which was great on the one side because you know, obviously when we sold the company, I own the majority of the equity. But on the other side is like I would have scaled much faster had I have like gotten money from the right people and not been afraid to have those conversations. So I think like, you know, don't be afraid to raise money. Would be, you know, don't run yourself ragged. Don't make life too hard for yourself. Don't try and do 20 person's jobs just to get by. You know, if you do have a good product, then it is worth investment, and you can negotiate good terms on that. So I guess one would be like, don't be afraid to sort of do that. The second thing was, you know, lawyers really are your best friend. Like these guys have been through it all before. I use Anik at Oric. I've used him since day dot with Download, and he's just had so much experience along the way. You know, and he can really help me in terms of defining these different terms and how you can set up, you know, different structures in terms of investing. I did all my own legal work with my first company. I really kind of did everything. And just the amount of like feedback and knowledge I've gotten from him has been huge, and it's just made my life a lot easier. The other thing that sort of just comes to like holistic health and well-being, like it's very important as like a leader in a company, you need to be healthy, you need to be there, you need to have energy every single day. And so that means like cutting out like a lot of the social stuff, like, and spending more time at the gym, eating well. And it's funny, like as I've sort of been on like health kicks with the company in the last 2 years, everyone else has, you know, now everyone's at Sweetgreen every day. And it's interesting, like what they sort of see you do, they start to sort of adopt. And I think now we have like a very healthy team, you know, they exercise together, and so you can really change the way that they do that. Where at previous companies, you know, where their culture is much more about drinking and lifestyle, it's great, they all get along because they all sort of like drink and hang out every single night after work, but they're also really exhausted and quite sick quite regularly. And so the other piece of advice is like, as a leader, you need to look after yourself, and you need to spend more time doing that. Take your time, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You won't get there faster if you do sort of cutting corners. Every release takes time, just plan ahead for it, knowing that that's going to happen in terms of your budgeting and team management. Trying to push a whole team to release products, they cut corners too, and you can't often see what they're doing. So it's really important. I would say take your time. Before my first company, I was just releasing all the time because I wanted to sort of show growth, where I should have just communicated to everyone, like, we'll take a little bit more time and we'll do better. And so that's something that I've really applied to our existing company, and I think it's been better culturally. I think that would sort of be my number one thing. And then the second thing is the people who you recruit and who you work with, you spend more time with them than anyone else. And so really go through that hiring process, pull on your existing network to whatever field they're in to help interview, make sure they're the right people. And then ask questions not just necessarily about like their job, but also like the way that they troubleshoot, the way they think about problems, you know, what are their aspirations and how they see the world. Really spend a lot of time in that hiring process. Don't just take someone based on their resume.